is Tracy, and I just started a new scrapbook. So I thought with the start of this scrapbook, I would document how I make this prefabricated kit personal to me. So this is a Becky Higgins all-in-one kit, and in this opening right here, I'm trying to decorate the inside cover, and I'm going to do the first page as well. So with this inside cover, what I did, I just glued a piece of construction paper down as sort of like a background for instead of just the plain white inside cover that it had. And I actually took a couple of pages out of my old planner from last year to use to decorate the inside cover. This scrapbook is going to start in September of 2019. That's how far that's how far back I am on my scrapbooking. So the pages I took out of my planner from last year are actually from September. They have a couple of things that I actually did, like when my work started and when my family moved to Hawaii last year. So I didn't really measure these exactly. I kind of just eyeballed them to make sure that they would fit and they would have a little bit of a framing of the red paper. And then what I did was I trimmed off the excess, the part that was bound to the planner itself. I just trimmed it off, and then I'm gonna layer it here. I just used regular multi-purpose Elmer's glue. Sometimes this type of glue likes to curl the pages, so I'm trying to pay special attention to keeping it nice and flat as I glue these pages together. And this will be the background to a more specific design on the inside cover. So instead of just opening up and seeing white and the first page, you'll open it and see this personalization. So I'm just spreading out that glue and making sure that it holds these pages down really nicely, but still has that red construction paper outline. And then right here, I'm just using a little bit of glue on the seam because I'm going to draw on this in just a couple of minutes. So I'm just making sure that the inner seam has glue on it so it doesn't flip up or fold up whenever I start drawing on it. Definitely don't want that to happen. And then this little corner down here didn't get very much glue on it. I'm trying to work in what I already have, but it doesn't really work out for me. So then I just add a little bit more glue down there to make sure that corner sticks. I want this to be really sturdy since this is going to be the background to some doodles in the next section. And then I'm going to go ahead and let that dry for a day. So after that, this is the next day. I let that completely dry so that when I use this permanent marker here, it doesn't mess up the glue. It doesn't mess up the paper in any way. And I decided to do my initial here, my last name initial on the inside of the cover. That I just outlined it right there, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to make it a little bit thicker so it really stands out against that background, because there are scribbles and words on that background, but I want my initial to really stand out as like the main focal point of this page. And I'm just using permanent marker because the tip is sturdy. I have a lot of black markers, but most of them are for calligraphy or specific types of drawing, different point sizes, and I knew that I was going to color in this initial completely black. So the thick and sturdy Sharpie worked really well here because it gives a good solid color. It doesn't look gray in some areas. It doesn't look faded in some areas. It covers really well. It did interfere with the glue a little bit on that seam. The glue made it seem like I was coloring on a really, really smooth surface instead of the rough surface like the piece of paper. But it did work out really nicely to give me a solid initial. I wanted that to be the focal point. And then to add just a little more detail, a little more flourish to the page, I did polka dots all around it, just in black. The pages I took from the planner already have a rainbow of colors on them, so I didn't want to try to match those colors with other markers that I have, and I didn't want to draw away from the fact that those pages do have colors. So I just used a smaller Sharpie for the polka dots, and then I just used a black ink pen with a very fine tip to do these little like arrowhead, like almost like half triangles, less than sign or greater than sign, however you want to describe it. I just used those all around to add a little more detail, a little more flourish to the page. So it still looks simple and it's super easy, but it adds just a little bit extra. And then for the last thing I did on this inside cover, I just added a little bit of a border on the top and the bottom just to kind of highlight the focal point that is the middle and kind of utilize the red construction paper behind it in addition to that little framework on the top and the bottom to make it just look a little more complete, a little more together, cohesive in a way that makes it appear finished. So then I let that sit for another day just to make sure I wouldn't rub it or anything like that. And then I took the first page out. I'm going to do a quote on this. The first page is just mixed media paper. It's just white. And then I picked out a nice yellow not construction paper, scrapbook paper. And then this is also, this turquoise piece is from a smaller piece of scrapbook paper collection, like a paper pad. I thought these two colors worked well with the pages from the planner. Both of these colors are on there, so it'll complement each other. And I do practice faux calligraphy, but I'm not the greatest at it yet. So on this page, I'm just writing the quote out. I'm gonna kind of alternate two writing styles. I decided to stick with the thick Sharpie just to make sure that the words would be legible and strong against this background, because the background of this paper does have a design, and I find that when the background of a paper has a design, if you try to write on it, you write too small, or if you write a certain way with a certain pen or marker, you can lose the words in the background. So I thought the thick black Sharpie would work really well in making sure that this quote was legible. And then I'm alternating cursive and small capital letters for the quote. And the quote that I chose is, "Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans." And a form of this quote is in a John Lennon song, and I've always really liked this quote because it just rings so true, in my opinion. You find that life's most special moments are in the in-between. So I just used that thick black marker, the big Sharpie, to write out the quote, and I'm going to use a smaller Sharpie to go back here and add some thickness to the downstrokes so that it looks more like faux calligraphy. In faux calligraphy, you use a lot of pressure on the downstrokes, and that's what makes the line thicker. And doing this will also help this quote to really pop off of the paper, give it a little more detail. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going through and making sure that the downstrokes have a thicker line than the upstrokes. Sometimes I had to pretend to rewrite it here so I knew which strokes were supposed to be the downstrokes and therefore which strokes were supposed to be thicker. So then when it's finished, the alternating lines will be more faux calligraphy instead of just cursive, and then small capital letters, faux calligraphy, small capital letters, and then again to end the quote. I was really happy how this quote turned out. Oh, I forgot to dot my I there. When I write, normally I don't dot my I's. I haven't since I was a little kid. I just never dot my I's. They just look like short L's. So sometimes when I'm writing a quote, I forget to dot my I's. But it seems like the I's should have their dots whenever it's for a design like this. I was really careful peeling off this tape. I was really nervous that peeling off the tape was going to rip the paper and then I was going to have to start over. But it was fine. So then I used the yellow piece of scrapbook paper as a background for the quote. I just used regular multi-purpose Elmer's glue here again. The bottle was kind of messed up here, so I had to figure out what was going on to get the glue to come out so I could actually use it there. But again, I just kind of eyeballed the scrapbook paper. I put the larger piece of yellow scrapbook paper on the white mixed media paper that will be the actual page, and I just cut out, use that as like a stencil almost, and cut out the yellow piece of scrapbook paper so that I knew that it would fit there and that it wouldn't interfere with the holes that the D-rings have to go through. So I just glued this on there, and I was really careful about trying to get it centered and really careful to spread the glue out in all directions so that it would dry as straight as it could there. Because here I'm using a lot of glue. I have to glue the turquoise paper with the quote on it to the yellow scrapbook paper, and then the yellow scrapbook paper is going to be glued to that piece of mixed media paper. So I wanted to try to get it as even as I could. I probably should have used a paintbrush to really move that glue around and cover it really nicely in a uniform way so that the paper wouldn't curl, because as you might have guessed already, that's exactly what happened. Whenever it was drying, it did curl, so I actually had to put a book on top of it to straighten it back out, to flatten it back out. And I did that overnight. So these 2 pages actually took me 4 days to make. I just wanted to make sure that the glue was completely dry and that my plans for each page were going to be worked out and ready for recording as soon as I did them. So here again, I just made sure that the glue is as even as possible, even though it didn't dry flat, it didn't dry straight. So like I said, I had to use some weight on top to get it to flatten back out, to straighten back out. But I was really happy with how well the colors went together on this page. So then after that, after I let it dry, I was ready to decorate it. I wanted to kind of frame the edges, the top and the bottom. So I picked out this picture from a magazine that you can see on the left, and it's just a picture of the outdoors. I'm gonna cut a strip of it off. So to kind of go with that photo, I decided to draw little suns and leaves at the top and the bottom to alternate those at the top and the bottom to create the framework there. So all I'm doing right here is taking that black pen. It has a very, very fine point, and I'm alternating drawing little suns and leaves. I could have used a stamp here, but I wanted it to be a little more minimalistic because the background, the turquoise paper, has such a strong background, and then adding the magazine picture on each side is also going to make the page look busier. So I wanted the sun and the leaf framing at the top and the bottom to be really simple, really minimalistic there. So now I'm just kind of eyeballing this. I'm going to cut slash tear this little piece of the picture out here so that I can use it on the side for the frames on the right and the left of the quote. I really liked this outdoorsy picture because it was just a little bit blurry. I think it's a tree in front of a house that's in front of the ocean. And I liked that it was just a little bit blurry, that you can tell what it is, but it could also be interpreted as another piece of artwork. I really liked that about this page. So that's initially why I chose this page. But then you'll see in a minute, whenever I get it cut out, I kind of have a change of heart on camera here. I'm trying to do this all one-handed because I'm also holding my daughter who was sleeping at the time. So you can kind of tell that it's a little difficult to cut out a strip of magazine paper when you only have one hand to work with there. So after I got that out, I kind of eyeballed how long I wanted it to be, and I notice here that the house is at the top of the strip, so I'm not really super excited about that. So then I kind of thought, well, maybe I can trim that so that the house isn't on there. So I kind of fold it there so I can trim that part off. So I liked the tree and the beach and the water that you can see at the very bottom there, but I didn't really want the house to be in the framework. So I just trimmed that off. And then in trimming that off, I realized that the back of the paper is actually really nice. But I still need two pieces, one for the left and one for the right. So I went ahead and folded that and cut that apart so that I could have two pieces, one for each side of the paper. This was a little harder to do one-handed, folding it like this and trying to get it even so that I could use it for both the left and the right piece of the frame. Took me an extra minute to really get it creased so that I could cut it. I like using all sorts of different types of paper. Yeah, I really like using all sorts of different types of paper in my scrapbooking. It's almost like a collage. Just trying to find the right pieces, the right colors that are going to look really good together and highlight the quote or the photograph, whatever the focal point of the page is. So here I'm just cutting apart those strips. I had to do it off camera since my other arm was holding my daughter. And here's that change of heart that I was talking about. I wasn't completely sure if I wanted to keep the green, brown, and blue side or use the opposite side, which was a picture of a wave crashing. So I thought that would match the turquoise paper really well. The green seemed like it would be more dramatic. It would create a bigger contrast between the paper and the frame. But I decided to go with the water because I just felt like those blues and whites went with the rest of the page really well. And then on this, because I didn't want the magazine paper to ripple, I used double-sided tape. I just put a piece on the top of the strip and a piece on the bottom of the strip. And then I kind of eyeballed where I wanted it to be in the middle of that framework area, so there would be yellow on both sides of the strip. And I just used the double-sided tape to make sure that it stuck there. I did not want this to ripple. I didn't want to take the chance of it rippling and then the paper becoming mushy and useless or ununiform. I felt like that would really detract from the page. So I just used double-sided tape here to put these strips on, the right and the left. Just lined it up. Tried to make it as even as I possibly could there. But then in doing so, I realized that the framework at the top and the bottom didn't go all the way to the edge, had these blank spaces in the corners. So I had to go back and add a couple more suns and a couple more leaves to make that frame go all the way around the paper instead of having these blank corners, which I felt looked a little off kilter. So by adding these last couple of doodles, I finished the page. Finished the opening page of my new scrapbook. Then I just had to pop it in there. Really happy with how it turned out. I like the colors. The yellow and the turquoise I felt matched really well. And this is the inside of the all-in-one kit. So right from the beginning, it's already super personalized. You can see together You can see that the initial really pops on that inside cover, and you can see that the quote really pops with that. And then I'm going to lift it up so you guys can see it a little bit better there. I hope that you liked this process video about how I did the inside cover and the first page of my new scrapbook.